Kim Sheehan is one of Ireland's leading sopranos, having performed in celebrated operas throughout Europe. Winning rave reviews for her performances, she has been lauded as excellent by the New York Times and as having a voice that sets the pulse racing by the Financial Times. Kim's voice can also be heard on some of your favourite TV commercials, as well as on the Beatles' backing vocals. We join Kim today in her beautiful Soho home to talk about her journey to success, overcoming insecurities, pushing your comfort zones and creating balance in life. Kim, thank you so much for joining me today. Tell me about your journey to becoming an opera singer. How did you get into it?
Well, I always wanted to be a singer. I was very passionate about singing from a very young age, but I hadn't been educated in the way of music, in the way of classical music. So I sang in bands and things like that, and I decided that the right thing for me to do was to go on to college and get a degree in music. And while I was there at college, the director of Opera Ireland came into our college one day and he said to us, "I'm putting on Così fan tutte, a beautiful Mozart opera," and I was chosen to sing the role of Despina, and I thought,
wow.
Okay, well, here we go. You know, I took the score home and learned the music, and obviously I'd never sung an opera before, so I was coming to terms with how the whole structure was set out. And so I managed to learn the entire opera, and then the following week I was in rehearsals, and it was only when I got into rehearsals that I really realised that, oh my God, I get to sing, first of all, which was the primary passion.
Yeah.
And second of all, I didn't really realise how comfortable I would feel in myself as an actress. So the two...
Because as an opera singer, you do a lot of acting as well. So that's not necessarily a skill that every singer has.
No, and in fact, opera singers all over the world, unfortunately, have become known as being very bad actors. So I feel very blessed that I feel comfortable enough to be able to put myself into a character. So it was basically the marriage of singing and acting, which just completely, you know, lit my world up, and I thought nothing could be better than this. This is where I want to be.
But it must have been quite a brave decision. Did you know anybody who was an opera singer or who was a performing artist? You just launched yourself into the unknown, it sounds.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of journey to becoming an opera singer was very natural. It kind of just one thing led to another, and I loved
you didn't
what I was
set out
doing.
thinking, I want to become an opera singer. You just...
I didn't. It just kind of kept happening to me, and then I thought, actually, this is what I really want. It was only a little bit later that it became kind of a bit daunting and a little bit scary because I didn't have any role models.
Yeah, any mentors really who had done the same thing.
No, and I think there were times when it came to making decisions about whether to sing a role or whether I should really go and sing opera, or who should I study opera with. Yeah. Those decisions became very difficult because I completely made every decision on my own. I just went it alone, and I was actually... I think that's probably another reason as to why I'm quite passionate about opera, because it's something that I found on my own. It's completely my own thing. But yeah, it was scary.
Yeah, it sounds it. How do you make those decisions? I mean, you know, there's intuition and there's logic, and how do you decide, I'm going to do this next, I'm going to do this next? How do you make those kind of decisions? You know, that takes a lot of bravery.
Yeah, it does. It takes a lot of strength of character, but I make those decisions by really assessing what's right for me at that time.
Yeah, where you are in your life right now.
Exactly. And, you know, when you're young, you're in your early 20s.
No responsibilities.
Yeah, and you just want to have a lot of fun as well. But I actually took becoming an opera singer very seriously. Yeah. You know, I did all the right things. And, you know, those decisions were helped by asking certain people for advice. Yeah. And basically I did follow my nose a lot of the time. If I was going to study with a new teacher or go to a new school or a new conservatoire, I visited the places and spoke to people and kind of...
You did your research.
I did do my research.
So it was a little bit of intuition, but a little bit of actually planning and strategy and kind of putting an intellectual structure around what you're doing.
Yeah, because I was told very early on that you have to actually market yourself in a very specific type of way if you want to be successful. So early on, I just said to myself, okay, I look like this and I sound like this. Yeah. and this is how I speak and this is how I act.
Yeah.
Where am I best going to fit in? I'm not going to fit in. I'm not going to fit in this particular school and area. So that was, yeah, it was intuition based, but there was a lot of research done.
But that's really interesting because that's an awareness of self. So what you've done is you've, you know, as you said, this is who I am, this is what I look like, this is what I'm good at. Where are these things together as a package going to work? And I think that's something that people don't necessarily do because they're not aware of who they are, what works for them, what they're good at. And that's a process in itself to understand yourself, isn't it? How do you think you got to that position?
Well, I think I got to that position by just sheer dedication, I think. I was never really the most confident kind of person, and I think that's probably why I came to singing and I came to acting.
Which is always so funny, isn't it? Actors and singers often say that they're not particularly confident, whereas, you know, people think, oh, you must be hugely confident to stand on stage in front of thousands of people and sing to them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work like that, does it?
It doesn't always work like that, unfortunately. I think for me particularly, I found a lot of comfort in the fact that I could become a different character and use different skills. It wasn't always about, you know, being technically perfect. It was more about completely becoming a character, and it was just, you know, kind of easier to get away from life a little bit. You know.
That's really interesting. And you've just finished Marriage of Figaro, which got phenomenal reviews. Tell me, what are your plans for the rest of the year?
Well, for the rest of the year, I've got a couple of very interesting plans coming up. I've just been offered the role of Malwina in a Marschner opera. It's a German romantic opera.
Lovely.
Called The Vampire, which I'm very excited about. That's going to be in Ireland, and then I'm going to sing another Queen of the Night in Ireland as well. And I'm also undertaking another project, which is Poulenc's La Voix Humaine. It's a one woman, one act opera. So I'm kind of producing it and acting in it myself.
Wow.
But I've got
a big,
yeah,
it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. Well, I kind of decided to do it because, you know, for about 10 years now, I've been an opera singer for about 10 years. I kind of always have people telling me what to do, you know, directors telling me what to do, where to stand, where to go, and sometimes there's not enough room to have your complete input.
Yeah.
So you can have your interpretation of the role, but it's not necessarily what the director might want.
Yeah.
So with this project, I felt that it was very important to get a theatre director, John Tarleton, involved, so that I could really learn the ropes of how theatre works and how it works to be a director, and I just wanted to go very deep into a character, and I think it's the perfect opera to do that with.
You get the freedom to do the things that you want to do, how you want to do them, and learn from that experience. That sounds hugely exciting. So do you have a date in mind of when you're going to be?
Yeah, the rehearsal process will begin in March. We've already done all our research and had quite a few meetings together. So the rehearsal process will be March, and then we're hoping to perform in April in Vienna and in London.
Wow.
But they'll just be the previews, and then hopefully we'll tour with it next year.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Now you seem a really, really motivated woman. You seem to have ideas and be inspired, and I think as a self-employed artist, you really have to have that intrinsic motivation for what you're doing, because it must be so easy in the morning to just think, I'm not working today, I'm just going to stay in bed all day. Yeah. So what motivates you? What gets you up when you don't have a specific project that you're working on at any one time?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, when I think of motivation, I think of off the back of a rejection, off the back of a disappointment, like you didn't get a job, or you went for an audition, you really wanted it, and you came second, and you know, they might call you if the other girl doesn't want to do it. I think I take those rejections quite hard. So when I think about motivation, I think about how am I going to pick myself up after this kind of knockdown? Yeah. And I kind of do it by really self-evaluation, by really going deep inside myself and saying to myself, you know, Kimmy, why is it that you want to do this? You know, because sometimes with rejection, you just actually do want to give up, and you think, of course, where am I going with this? You know,
it's so hard. There must be easier things to do.
There must be easier things to do. So I really go back to my essence. I go back to my basic, and I go back to who I am, and what I stand for and why I began singing in the first place.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
Yeah, and it really, you just get up and you're like, right, I'm going to do it. You know, forget that now. Hard work.
Move on,
get on with things, learn from the letdowns.
Yeah, and how do you take strength from that? I mean, do you take that perceived failure as a stepping stone? That wasn't, do you see it sort of fatalistically, like, well, that wasn't right for me, but something else will be right for me? Or how do you approach those sorts of situations?
Yeah, because that's quite difficult, because sometimes I might put myself in line for work that maybe I know doesn't suit me, and then I don't get the job, and then I'm kind of setting myself up for failure.
Yeah.
But I think when you realise that you've got to stay true to who you are and what your path is, that, okay, if you stumble along the way, it is just a learning curve. Someone will help you along the way, but basically you have to help yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's really going to make your career for you, but I think you just have to learn from the situation, take the positives, and unfortunately you've got to take the negatives with you as well, and take out of those what you can.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's strengthened my character over time.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you approach these sort of rejections and letdowns differently now you're an established performing artist than you did from when you were just out of college? You know, do you approach it very differently now, or have you grown into the process?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, if I didn't get a role, I would just be like, I didn't get it. Well, you know, I didn't never expected to get the roles anyway.
Yeah.
And then, you know, oftentimes when you get a bit more established and better at what you do, and you become known for certain things, when you do get we've chosen someone else, you really have to be very strong to not let yourself say, I really wanted that and they didn't give it to me. You just have to think, someone else was better for this role.
Yeah.
I didn't get it, so I need to just move on and focus on where my strengths lay best.
Yeah. And not focus on the what could have beens and on the past. Just keep looking forward.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And what would you say was your greatest success to date, if you had to pick just one thing?
Well, I do have a couple of things come to mind. I have done a lot of very exciting things over the last few years, but I think my greatest success was about 3 years ago when I sang the role of Zerbinetta in Germany. It's such a famous role, you know, very few singers attempt to sing it because it's so technically difficult, and so long. But I would consider that my greatest success, because I think the character, I completely became the character, and I really felt as though the role had been written for me, even though it was written 100 years ago or so. So I would say that was my greatest success, because I felt it was a big turning point in my life. It really changed things for me, of how I saw myself as an opera singer in the world.
That's really interesting. So that was one of your turning points as well as your greatest successes.
Yes.
And off the back of that, do you think that other people now see you differently as an artist?
I think so, yeah. I had done a lot of interesting work up until that point.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, it's to go back to the whole marketing thing. I knew, you know, you don't just get up and sing the role. There's years of preparation that goes into it. Of course, so I decided to, you know, pursue the role because I knew that I could do it, first of all. You know, I believed I could do it, and I believed the character suited me. Yeah. But I also knew that with hard work that I could achieve it. Yeah. So,
and knowing that very few other people have achieved it, that must really reinforce your identity as an opera singer, and as this is the right path for me. I am doing the right thing. This is, you know, perfect for me.
Yeah, it was perfect for me. And I mean, I think people took me a little bit more seriously afterwards in the world of opera, in the industry. But I think as well as that, I also began to take myself a bit more seriously too. And I think that's where the confidence comes in. It's, you know, it's a thin line. Yeah. Going to an audition and kind of going, I know I'm really good. Yeah. But also kind of going, you know, it's just a job at the end of the day. And you have to really have that balance, which is very hard to find, which is something I've struggled to find. But you know, I think it's there.
Sounds like it is. It sounds like you're doing an amazing job. And if you could share one secret to your success, what do you think it would be?
I would say the secret to my personal success, not that I think I'm successful, I really don't. I know that there's a big long road out there that I still have to travel, and it's all about maintaining a career. But for me personally, what has worked for me is just that sheer belief that I can do it.
Yeah.
You know, I might not necessarily be able to technically do something at some point, but I know that I can. And when I go to auditions or when I approach a role or come into the rehearsal process, I always see the end in sight. You know, I see the performance in my head, and I know that
you can
that
do
I'll
it.
be great.
That you'll be great.
That I'll bring something special and different. And I think it's that keeps me going.
Yeah.
That really keeps me going as an opera singer.
Yeah, I think it would have to. And if you could share any advice or wisdom with the women who are wanting to create success as maybe an opera singer or as a performing artist, would you say that it was the self-belief that without this strong sense of who you are and belief that you can do it, it would be an impossible sort of path to take?
Yes, I would definitely say that. You know, when you're training to be an opera singer, you have a lot of coaches and teachers, and they're all amazing.
Yeah.
But they are all molding you into how they think you should see yourself in the world. And sometimes that might not necessarily be right for you and you have to move on. But if I were to advise a young woman who wants to be an opera singer, I would say, sit down and speak to yourself. Ask yourself a whole load of questions. Ask yourself the kind of questions that nobody else is going to take the time to ask of you.
Yeah.
It's a long road. And as I said with the rejections, you know, of course there are a lot of highs, but there are also a lot of lows. You know, you have to look after yourself and you don't drink as much, you don't go out smoking, you don't talk too much when you're in nightclubs and things. But I would just say, sit down and just really ask yourself and evaluate who you are and where you are in your life, and just really, really figure out what makes you special, because that's the only way to be successful as an opera singer. I think in that sort of industry, it seems to me that there's so much comparison. There are so many, well, she can do this and he can do this and she's better at this and she looks like this, and actually having that sense of who you are is so important for the self-belief, but also for the strategy. You know, I think maybe what people don't realize is that actually you're a businesswoman as well as an opera singer. You have to market yourself, you have to brand yourself, you have to sell yourself, just like you do with any business, just like you do with any product. You know, your singing is the product of your brand. Yeah. And that's not necessarily something that I think most performing artists necessarily do to the best of their ability, because that's not necessarily a skill that they have. You know, they're a phenomenal singer or actress or whatever it may be. But to have those additional skills as well must be hugely beneficial to help you to stand out from the crowd and do all of those things that you're talking about. Yeah, and I think that, you know, nobody's going to sit down and teach you those skills unless you go and do a business course or a marketing course. Yeah. So you're going to learn on the job, and you learn from other singers and you watch what they do, but you still have to be completely true to yourself, because when you are on the stage, they're going to put a costume on you. They're going to do your makeup and your hair completely. You won't even look like yourself anymore. So when it does come to being an opera singer, you really have to figure out what makes you sparkle, what makes you shine, and market that. Yeah. As opposed to marketing the finished product. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? The also raw what other product. People are saying to you as well. Other people think you should do this. Other people want to mold you, as you were saying, in different directions, maybe that works for them, but not necessarily for you. And it's that sense of actually follow your intuition and what's right for you, and listen to yourself rather than other people, and that authenticity that comes only from knowing yourself and knowing where you want to go. Yeah, and I think it's also quite interesting because that's something you have to tackle every single day when you practice. when you get up and you write emails, when you're updating your website, when you're thinking about the next role you're going to work on. It lives with you every single day. You know, Saturday nights and Sunday mornings, you wake up or you're going out and you're thinking, okay, well, I must do this and I must do that. So it's like a full-time business.
I was going to say, it sounds like a lifestyle choice. Yeah. I know that entrepreneurs always say that actually running your own business, it's a lifestyle choice because you're on 24/7. And it sounds pretty like that for you as well. Even when you're out, you're thinking, can't use my voice too much, I can't drink too much because I've got auditions or I've got rehearsals or whatever it is, and it sort of encompasses your whole life.
Yeah, also you have to be careful not to become too precious as well, because you should enjoy your life and you should have fun, and if you take it too seriously then maybe it's not the right thing for you as well, but you know, there has to be a balance.
And balance, that's really interesting, because I think that's something that a lot of women struggle with. If they're passionate about their careers, it's very difficult often to get that balance across a home life and, you know, if they have children and hobbies and friends and creating that balance in your life. And I know that you have 2 homes, you're in Ireland half the time or more than half the time, you're in London, you have a very successful relationship with your husband who's a composer, and he is also all over the world. How do you maintain balance in your life?
Well, I think we just maintain balance through just sheer love. We love each other, we love what we do, we love traveling, and we just built a house this year and we love Ireland, and we really wanted a house there, so we really threw ourselves into that. When Tom is traveling with his work, I try to be with him. When I'm traveling, he'll make sure he's with me. And yes, sometimes we do have to be alone, but actually that's really nice as well, where you get that little bit of time apart and to kind of reevaluate life and actually just kick back and enjoy yourself. But I think balance can only come out of love, about loving what you do, because otherwise you won't do it if you don't enjoy it.
Yeah, and there's always going to be a compromise in some way in life, isn't there? So if you love each other, then you don't mind the compromise you make in your career for that other person. And then if you love what you do, you don't mind so much the compromise you're making in your relationship in order to maintain and establish your career.
Yeah.
So it's finding out what works for you. And I think you two have created a fantastic life for yourself, and it seems to work for both of you independently as well as together.
Yeah.
And that's a really beautiful thing to see, because it is so unusual. First of all, your careers are both very unusual. It's not, you're not sort of 9 to 5 people. So making that work with different countries, it is amazing. It's very inspirational to see that it can be done, and it can be done so effectively. And that the root of all of that is love is really nice to hear.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. So what would you say is the greatest lesson that you've ever learnt, and who taught it to you?
Okay, well, I would definitely have to say my mother taught me the greatest lesson I ever learned, which has shaped me as a person and as a career woman, is when I was a teenager. She said I really, really wanted to get a job, a summer job, to pay my way and make a bit of money to go to college and all the rest. Yeah. And she said to me, it was a Saturday morning and I had my CV, and she said, right, you go to the bus, get on the bus now and go to town, and don't come back till you found a job. And I was like, I was so easygoing. Okay. So
sounds fine.
I trawled the city, and by 2 o'clock I had a job. And so I felt, okay, I can go home now because I've got a job. And that's the greatest lesson for me, because you can be talented and, life can be fun and, you can have all these great things, but actually without application and kind of hard work and just, as like I said earlier, that sheer belief that you can do it, I think, that's probably like the secret to how I live my life. And, sometimes life's good, sometimes life's not so good. But it's that just sheer belief, that lesson that go out and get what you want, you can have it. Yeah. You just have to find it. Might take time, but you'll get there. Yeah. I think that that's what rings true for me.
I love that lesson.
Yeah, it's fun.
And if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, your teenage self, what would you say to her?
I think I would say to her to just not be so hard on yourself. I think I kind of spent most of my teenage years thinking I was really unattractive, that I was the ugly duckling. And it's probably also, again, what led me to be a singer, because I had this talent, and then that was my way to kind of be original. But yes, I would go back in time and I would just say, take it easy on yourself.
It's going to be okay.
You're actually lovely. You are beautiful. You've got all these great things, and to make the most of it.
And maybe if you had thought that then, you wouldn't have led the life that you have led to this moment. You know, that's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, we create our own destiny.
Exactly, exactly. I love that. And do you have any regrets? And if so, what are they?
When I was very young, I made up a mantra for myself, and it was no regrets. That's how I've lived my life.
I have that one too.
Yeah, but you know, I'm only human, and I do
have... It's easier said than done.
I know, it certainly is. But I do have a couple of regrets. And they're small regrets, they're not big ones. And one small regret is that in the pursuance of my career, that I just wish I could have stopped and taken the moments.
Lived in the moment a bit more.
And just kind of said, this is great. You know, oh my God.
I've done this, I've achieved this.
Yeah, and really lived it. I was always thinking about what's next.
Yeah.
How can I get to this next thing? How can I get to this next
thing?
Not
appreciating the moment. I think that's a really big one for women in the 21st century. I think we have so many goals and so many ambitions that it's almost like once we've achieved one, we move straight to the next one without saying, oh, but I achieved this goal that I set for myself. It's like, well, I've got that, now what's next? It's never quite enough, is it, when you're always wanting and grabbing and stretching and reaching and wanting more and more and more.
Yeah.
But I think that living in the moment mantra is really powerful and really important for the enjoyment of the journey of life.
Yes, I completely agree with that. Yeah.
And what are you doing knowing that is something that you regret about your past? Are you doing anything with that knowledge? What are you doing?
Yeah, I've done a lot with that knowledge, because this knowledge has only come about within the last 2 years, I think. I think
it's a 30s thing.
As
soon as I hit my 30s, I started thinking that.
That's a big turning point in my life, was turning 30. I just thought, oh God, I don't like this. Don't like this at all. But I think it's important to just remember that when you do have those moments, that you do have to search for something. You can't just sit back and become comfortable and say, okay, well, this is the way my life's going to be. So at that time when it happened, I searched for a couple of things that I needed in my life. So I took up meditation.
Yeah.
I started to do a little bit more exercise. I spent a lot more time with my friends. I cancelled some work.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Made a bit more time. Decided to build a house in Ireland. Just decided to
all amazing decisions off the back of this realization.
Yeah.
And do you think your life is better now, having had the realization, made those changes?
Yeah, my life's a little bit slower now, and I like that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit slower. It's not as fast and furious. Yes, it is better. It is better. I feel happier in myself. I feel more comfortable and more confident in myself, that I can take the time for myself, and that I'm not always looking backwards or looking forwards.
It's liberating in a way.
It is liberating.
To just be at peace with today. I love that. And what are the 3 things that you have decided that you need for you to live your very best life?
Okay, 3 things. Well, the first thing that is really important to me is courage.
I can see that in you, though. You're such a strong, courageous woman that you can tell courage is a hugely important part of your life.
Yeah, I mean, it's defined my life, to be fair, because I've always felt like I was kind of the underdog coming at things. You know, wanted to be an opera singer, never had classical training.
Yeah.
You know, moving to London, moving to Germany. So I think I've had to do a lot of courageous things in my life, and I think it's really shaped the person that I am. But of course that courage has to come out of a belief that you can do it.
Yeah.
So you put yourself in a lot of risky situations, singing big repertoire that maybe you're not right for, but in your head you're convinced you are. So, and other people might think she can't do that, whereas you know inside
that you can.
You know, and a lot of people have said you're very courageous, and I'm like, it's who I am. It's one of my big things.
Yeah.
And then a second characteristic or trait that defines me is loyalty, I think. Like loyalty to my friends, a loyalty to my family, a loyalty to music, a loyalty to what a composer's written. I'm very loyal to directors, what they ask me to do.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big part of who I am, and I try to be loyal to myself, you know, a loyal friend to my husband, a loyal partner, and I think that's a very big part of who I am. And then the third one we've mentioned already is love. I think it's very, very important to just fill your life with love and to give love to other people. You might not always want to. You might be in difficult situations where you're like, I don't want to do that. But I think I've learned over time that you just have to give people love and love yourself.
Yeah. Love what you do.
And love what you do. And it's just really important. It just gives you a nice feeling. It just makes you feel good about yourself.
And one of the things I've always remembered that you and your husband said to me one time was that you should treat your partner like they're a guest in your life.
Oh, yeah.
And Joe and I love that.
You remember that?
We always say that to each other if, having an argument or something. It's always like, no, we need to treat each other because you do. The person that you're with, you take them for granted. You're cruel to them. You're mean to them because you're so close to them. You would never speak to somebody in the street sometimes the way that you would speak to the person that you've decided to share your life with. So that love... and the way that the two of you have obviously, decided to represent that and come up with these little tools and tips and strategies to help you to do that and help you to create that in your lives. I love that though.
Oh, good.
I'm
glad that you like that one.
Now, Kim, we've come to a stage where, as you know, I love to set exercises to help people to implement the knowledge and the advice that we share. And we've had some amazing stuff from you today that I know I'm going to take away with me and try and use in my life. And I was hoping that you could set the watchers an exercise based on maybe something that you've done in your own life which has helped you to create the successful career that you've created, that they can go away and do and help themselves.
Okay, well, if I were to suggest a tool or an idea that you could implement into your life in a practical way that might help, it would be to take, again, a good long look at yourself and to try to get back to the essence. Try to find out so the industry that you're in, so you might be a little bit broad. So try to find out what you are absolutely specifically good at. That one thing that really sets you apart from everyone. Because
it doesn't have to be loads of things, does it? It could just be one specific thing.
Because, so this is how I did it. So say you take a particular type of singing and then you aim it at a specific part of the industry.
Yes.
And then if you're going to aim at another part of the industry, you'll use a broader spectrum of your talents. So it's kind of like...
targeting.
It's like targeting. It's like upping your hit rate. It's kind of trying to get more hits. So really go in specific about what you're good at and then aim that.
And that comes from the awareness. It comes from, right, this is who I am. As you were saying before, this is what I look like. For your industry, that's important. It's not important for every industry, but this is what I'm good at. So how can I, market and promote myself for these specific skills and abilities, and then target a specific part of your industry.
Yes. And never be afraid to be a small fish in a big pond or a big fish in a small pond. Just move yourself around like on a chessboard. Never stay still in one place for too long. That's what I do. So maybe that might be a good challenge, is to play around with your talents. and to really focus in on a specific one, but and then apply for certain jobs or certain contracts in one specific area. For example, this year I've decided to focus on auditioning only in Ireland. So the hit rate will go up, because I know it will, and it has already, because the last 2 years I was focusing on something completely different, and had a few hits with that. So it's just like by spreading things out, but in a very specific type of way. And I don't know whether that makes any sense to anyone.
Yeah, no, it does.
But I think it's worth a try, because I learned this saying recently, which really stands to me. You know, before you give up, try again, but in a different way.
Yeah. Well, as Einstein said, you know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
And I think that people can get completely exhausted and overwhelmed by, you know, doing the same thing over and over again and getting no result.
Exactly.
So what can you do to actually give yourself a different result? And different hopefully means better. And if it's not, well, you take that learning and you try something different, and you focus somewhere different, you target somewhere different. So I love that idea. And it all comes from, if we put it down into step-by-step strategy, it would be having self-awareness would be step one. Really knowing yourself, who you are, what's different about you, and different can be special. So what's special about you? And then from that standpoint, you know, how does that work within your specific industry? How do these things that are special about you, how do they apply to your industry, and how do they make you different within your industry? And then finding that niche, that little area within your industry that works for those skills and talents and abilities that you have, and start targeting that specific area.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's a really interesting new strategy for us, and I will set an exercise for our viewers afterwards. And that's it. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Kim, and huge congratulations in your success to date. And I can't wait to watch the amazing things that happen in the next few years for you personally and for your career.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.